starting off at number 5, parents. Look, let's just get this one right out of the way now, okay? Parents, y'all can be the worst sometimes. The whole myth of the boogeyman came about as a way for parents to scare their kids into acting right. Like the whole, you better behave or the boogeyman will get you thing. Absolutely the worst. Now, whenever your kid is going to sleep at night in their dark room, the house will do what houses do and settle. Or something might fall, or the wind will blow outside just a little harder than usual, and now that kid is laying in bed terrified, thinking that something is coming out of its closet or under its bed, despite that kid's best efforts to be the best behaved kid you've ever met. Congratulations, you terrified your kid, but on the other hand, nightlight sales have probably been given a bit of a boost, so hey, you scared your kid and contributed to capitalism. Round of applause for you. Number 4, Crybaby Bridge. Down in Georgia, where all kinds of creepypastas and urban legends are running amok, there's one bridge famous for its boogeyman, Crybaby Bridge. Now, there are many bridges that have picked up this name in the US, but this one stands apart. What is an unassuming rickety wooden bridge with no safety rails during the daytime is the most haunted bridge in Georgia by night. The legends say that a single mother, crying and hoping for the end, was driving one rainy night with a small passenger in the back seat. Blinded by the rain and her own distraught tears, she drove off the rickety bridge that would later become Crybaby Bridge. The water below was not horribly deep, but for a woman who didn't care for her life and the helpless one in the back, the water brought the end. Since that day, a legend arose warning against anyone who dares stop on the bridge and turn off their headlights. Who better to test out urban legends than a group of 6 bored teenagers who had read the urban legend and decided to investigate. They piled into a car and drove out to Crybaby Bridge on a dark, unlit road surrounded by dense thickets of trees and brush. The teenagers drove out onto the 30-foot bridge as it creaked and crackled under the weight of their car. All at once, they agreed to get out of the car, but as they did, something below used their movement as cover for its own. The group grew quiet, trying to bring on whatever was supposed to happen, but as they grew quiet, so did the nightlife around. No crickets, no birds, no frogs. After a moment of silence, the faint sound of a crying baby slowly began to echo from downstream. Below the bridge, something was moving, trying to slip through the water without making too much sound. Then, a figure, man-like but all out of whack, appeared at the end of the bridge. It had a huge face with little beady black eyes, a huge nose but flattened. The face was covered in thick, reddish hair, and from its mouth were the sounds of a crying baby. But as the teens shone their light on this creature, the crying stopped. Now, the 9-foot tall creature stepped forward, a huge, muscular creature with elongated arms. As the teens recoiled in horror, another similar creature began reaching up from under the bridge, trying to get a hold on an ankle. This was a trap. What happens next? Well, you have to read the rest for yourself, sorry. Number 3, the Bye-Bye Man. Eli was a graduate student living in the town of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin in the fall of 1990 with his girlfriend Catherine and a friend named Jonathan. Someone had found an old Ouija board in an attic and for fun gave it to the 3 friends who had been living together. Just like any group of friends would, the 3 began conducting experiments with the board, seeing if this whole superstition thing was real. Turns out they had a pretty wild ride. After they believed they had communicated with a number of spirits, they decided to make an effort to contact a spirit that had actually been a living human. The board eventually transmitted the story of the Bye-Bye Man, a blind albino man born in Louisiana sometime in the 1920s. According to the story, his parents put him in an orphanage in Algiers, New Orleans, where he was shunned. The boy eventually escaped the orphanage and turned to the life of a killer. Jumping on trains and traveling around wherever he wanted, he was accompanied by his companion called Gloomsinger, which was a dog-like creature sewn together from the tongues and the eyes of his victims. Well, unfortunately, the 3 friends, Eli, Catherine, and Jonathan, were told via the Ouija board that the spirit of the Bye-Bye Man had latched onto them and that he was coming for them. Apparently, anyone who thought of or said the Bye-Bye Man's name became his next target. He then began riding the rails in their direction, sending out Gloomsinger to locate the person. Once they were found, Gloomsinger would let out a shrill whistle to call to the Bye-Bye Man. The history of the Bye-Bye Man is traced back to a teenager who told a reporter that he took his family's lives because the Bye-Bye Man made him do it. Luckily for Eli, Catherine, and Jonathan, they were not driven to hurt anyone, but they were definitely scared out of their skin. There is a movie based on this story, but in that one, things don't end so nicely. Number 2, Terry Sherman. The great thing about the Boogeyman is that it has no one form. It's just the manifestation of whatever people fear. For the Native American Navajo people, this would be the skinwalker. Now before I get into this, everything I tell you is coming from the brief amounts of research I did when making this video, so if I get something wrong or mispronounce certain things, feel free to politely correct me in the comments below. Similar but not the same to the Russian Baba Yaga, the skinwalker is a kind of wicked sorcerer who can transform into, occupy, or disguise themselves as an animal. It has deep roots in Aboriginal American folklore. Other tribes throughout the region also have their own versions of the skinwalker. The Pueblo people, Apache, and Hopi people each have their own unique interpretation of what a skinwalker might be. Some believe that skinwalkers are produced when a medicine man abuses magic for evil, corrupting the natural order of things, turning them into an evil entity capable of controlling and turning into animals, or even possessing others. There's also another version that says that one becomes a skinwalker by performing some kind of taboo act, similar to the tale of the Wendigo. In Navajo stories, the Nagloshi were agents for the holy people when they were first training humans in the blessing way. Nagloshi were supposed to abandon the mortal world with the holy people, but a few decided to stay behind. Their greed and desire to stay in the mortal plane corrupted the power the holy people gave them and transformed them into malicious semi-divine beings. Now, I'm actually putting myself in quite a bit of danger here even talking about this, as these beings are not something you are supposed to talk about. Even the people who named this being aren't willing to talk about it, especially not with outsiders, so be courteous and don't go asking about it. Most of you have likely heard of Sherman Ranch, also known as Skinwalker Ranch. This ranch near Ballard, Utah is apparently a cursed lot of land that has had many different kinds of encounters. One is of interest to us right now. Terry Sherman, the owner of the property way back in 1996, was walking his dogs around the farm late at night when he came upon a wolf. A wolf 3 times the size of a regular one with glowing red eyes and an incredibly mean look. Terry claims to have attacked the beast, but no evidence is actually available. Was this the Navajo's Boogeyman? Who knows? Number 1, Cropsey. Okay, this one is going to get a bit more real. In Staten Island, USA, a tale of a boogeyman-like creature named Cropsey was famous among many kids who lived in the area. Cropsey was said to be an axe-wielding man who escaped from a mental institution and would lurk around in the dark tunnels below the old abandoned Willowbrook State School, a facility for children with intellectual disabilities that was shuttered after allegations of horrific mistreatment were exposed. The story says Cropsey comes out at night to snatch young people and bring them back into the abandoned Willowbrook. But the horror tale was actually a horrifying reality. Cropsey was in actuality Andre Rand, a suspected killer who was convicted for the passing of 2 young individuals in the 1970s. In keeping with the tale, Rand worked as a janitor at Willowbrook in the mid-1960s. Before his capture, Rand was homeless and living in a makeshift campsite on the grounds of the abandoned school not far from the Seaview Hospital that was so closely tied to the Cropsey legend. Rand's story and the tale of Cropsey continues to fascinate and horrify kids and even adults to this day. In fact, 2 filmmakers, Joshua Zeman and Barbara Brancaccio, grew up on Staten Island and listened to the terrifying Cropsey stories when they were children. As adults, their curiosity led them to dig deeper into the urban legend of Cropsey and the real cases of the island's missing people. They even made a documentary, Cropsey, that explores the bizarre case of the boogeyman who seemed to come to life.
Coming in at number 5, we have Locked in the Closet. This creepy tale comes to us from Sassy Girl over on Your Ghost Stories. They tell the story of the time during summer break when her mum had gone to work and her aunt had come over to babysit herself and her sister. She was around 8 years old at the time and her cousin a year younger. Her sister was almost 4 years older than herself. It was a hot day, so they decided to play inside, with the group settling on hide and seek. Her sister wanted to start, so the rest of them began to hide. They wanted to hide on the shelf in one of the closets, knowing the sister would never find them there. However, they couldn't get up, so they settled themselves at the back of the closet behind clothes and shoes. They waited, and as they did, they heard something to the right of them. It was a little sound like something shifted, or someone shifted. They ignored it and continued playing. Then the door to the upstairs opened. The sound once again was heard, but they ignored it. Then someone entered the room, and they struggled not to laugh. They stood there for a moment. The shadows of their feet could be be seen under the door. Then they heard the door lock. They both jumped up and yelled for it to be opened, but the knob wouldn't turn. It wouldn't even budge. However, the sister kept persisting that the door wasn't locked. She had never locked it. She assumed they were holding onto the knob. Finally, they all realized the door was stuck. They locked and unlocked the door, but nothing. However, finally the door swung open on its own accord. They never hid in the closet again. Later that night, they had their dad check all the doors. He tried every single way he could, yet he couldn't find anything wrong with the door. So what exactly was inside the closet with them? The boogeyman? Perhaps. Coming in at number 4, we have strange noises. This story comes to us from Experience PSA, who tells of the time around a week ago, at the time of posting, when they awoke at around 1 AM by a strange tapping noise. It was a fast-paced tap with a tiny metallic ring to it. They sat up, attempting to locate the source of the noise. However, it continued as they held their breath to get a better sense of where it was coming from. After a minute, they realized the tapping was coming from inside the room, more precisely their desk. They had on their desk one of those Newton's cradle things. As a time passer, you know, the ones with the balls. You pick up one ball, swing it, hits the others, and it bounces back and forth until it never ends, until the world ends. This was the source of the noise. They sat in awe for a few moments, with the cradle not losing energy. In the end, they stopped the ball themselves and went back to sleep. However, 2 nights later at 2:27 AM, the tapping once again began. This time, they stood up and stopped the cradle, mockingly stating, "Very funny, spirit," and then went back to bed. An hour later, though, a dull hum could be heard. It continued for half an hour until a slight crash sounded on the desk. They got up to investigate and discovered the cradle had been knocked over, and their notebook was now open with a bend in one of the pages. Creepy indeed. What do you guys think? Angry boogeyman who is not a fan of Newton's cradle? To be fair, I love those things. I could watch them go back and forth all day. In at number 3, we have Grandma Drowned the Boogeyman. Another story coming to us from Your Ghost Stories. This one was posted by Valkyrie Cry, who tells the story of the time her grandmother supposedly drowned the boogeyman. She begins by stating that it was 1946 in rural Kentucky. The twins, her older sisters, were 5 years old at the time and living with their mother in a small cabin on their grandmother's property. They were quiet, well-behaved children. That was until the arrival of the boogeyman. It came out of nowhere, the children yelling in the night, screaming that the boogeyman was there. Now, of course, the mother always assured them that the boogeyman wasn't real, and even if he were, they had nothing to worry about. They were well-behaved children. However, little did the children know the mother was also afraid. On several occasions, doors that were left closed were now open, and the children's rooms would often smell of rotten eggs. There were even occasions where she discovered weird drag marks in the dirt outside the window, as if someone with a limp had come that way. Privately, she told her father that she feared that the boogeyman might be some homeless person lurking about the house. Days dragged by, the boogeyman taking its toll on the family, mostly due to lack of sleep. So one day the grandmother decided to consult with Aunt Sylvie about the situation, resulting in the grandmother consulting with a known witch. The grandmother came home, ushering everyone into their rooms, remarking that she will deal with the boogeyman. From the next room she could be heard yelling, "See this broom, you devil, I'm going to beat you with it. Now you get out of here in the name of Jesus and never come back." After a short while, the grandmother returned, stating that they needn't worry anymore because she chased him down to the river where he drowned. To be honest, let's hope it's the boogeyman, otherwise grandmother killed an innocent man. Coming in at number 2, the closet. This story comes to us from Orphans on Your Ghost Stories. They write of a time a few years back when they were babysitting for their aunt and had just put their cousin to sleep. They state that they turned around and began walking down the hall into the living room when they suddenly heard their cousin screaming. She found her crying, saying that she saw the boogeyman. She put her back to sleep and left once again. However, 20 minutes later, the screaming resumed. She went into the bedroom and saw her crying once again. However, this time she heard a crash coming from inside the walk-in closet. The handle began turning back and forth on its own, and the door slowly creaked open. She quickly picks up her cousin and ran. She never told her aunt what happened. Would anyone really believe her? What do you think? The boogeyman? The wind? Anything else? Creaky door? And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the boogeyman. Now, this story comes to us from It's Pixie on Your Ghost Stories, who tells of the time she was staying with her parents in a quiet suburb in South Africa. Now, the story itself occurs when she was just 13 years old, and she says it still haunts her to this day. She states that she remembers waking up in the early hours one morning, feeling panicked and afraid, feeling like someone was watching her, as though she wasn't alone. She didn't move but scanned the room. She didn't see anything. A few days passed with no occurrences. However, one night she woke up again with the same fear and panic. She scanned the room, and this time she saw something. It was sitting on her desk in front of her bed. It was small, almost like a garden gnome. It had yellow eyes, sharp little teeth, and pointed fingers. She recalled it just staring at her. She had never felt so scared in her life. She screamed and her dad came running in the room. Of course, he didn't believe what she saw. Following that, she was scared to go to bed alone. She could always feel it watching her. And not only that, but it also began scratching the underside of her bed at night, once again waking her up. This time she saw the creature on her desk, however it was now smiling, the most evil smile she had ever seen. According to the user, this went on for years. Nothing she did ever made it go away. One night, like all the previous nights, she awoke to find him sitting on her desk again. She closed her eyes and covered her face, but she knew he was still there. Then she felt him jump onto the bed. She didn't dare move. She could feel him scratching her arm. Then she screamed. The following morning she found 4 scratches on her arm. Time passed and things got better. However, when the user turned 18, something else happened. She was staying at a friend's house when suddenly everyone awoke in the middle of the night to her friend's boyfriend screaming. She knew the creature was there. The boy began yelling, "The boogeyman is here. The boogeyman is here." He saw the exact same creature as her. She ends the story with, "I'm 26 now and I haven't seen or felt it again after that night." In at 5, SCP-096. A humanoid creature approximately 2.38 meters in height with very little muscle mass and mild malnutrition is how SCP-096 is described on its wiki website. Its jaw can open 4 times that of an average human and is described as extremely docile. The creature is also described as incredibly dangerous and will kill before returning to its docile state. It is contained in a 5x5x5 airtight steel cube and no video surveillance is authorized. However, one video shows otherwise. In a black and white surveillance video uploaded to YouTube, a humanoid figure can be seen sitting on a bed in a dreary dark room. It does nothing but rock backwards and forwards continuously before laying in a fetal position on the bed. The video jumps between the creature standing, rocking, crawling, and then it disappears altogether before the bed flies across the room without any warning. Now, though labelled as SCP-096, it is unconfirmed if this is the real creature in question. What do you guys think? In at 4, SCP-173. Now right off the bat I'll say this video is fake, 100% fake. Nothing about this is real, but it's creepy. It's never not creepy, purely because SCP-173 is just simply terrifying to look at. Plain and simple. Now 173's description is odd and its origins unknown, but here's what is stated on its wiki website. SCP-173 is animate and extremely hostile. The object cannot move while within direct line of sight, but if line of sight is broken, even via blinking, 173 will attack by snapping the neck at the base of the skull. Yeah, brutal. Now, this video uploaded by Sammy Whiteley is pure excellence. They animated 173, and that's it. It's just 173. However, while watching, you're almost too afraid to blink, just in case it jumps out of your screen and snaps your neck. I didn't risk it, will you? In at 3, SCP-049. Also known as the Plague Doctor, this SCP is described as being a humanoid entity, approximately 1.9 meters in height and bears the appearance of a Plague Doctor. Now, although it appears to be robes the creature is wearing, over time the garments seem to have grown out of its own body. It is capable of speech, being knowledgeable in a variety of different languages, and is capable of death by touching those around it, causing all of their bodily functions to cease. However, it is known to be quite cordial. In this video in question, we see what appears to be the Plague Doctor roaming around a riverbank before slowly walking away and out of sight. The video is short, but is creepy nonetheless. Where is it going? Why is it there? Is it looking to kill? I guess we'll never know. Coming in at number 2, SCP-173. Again. Now, this is slightly cheating, I know, but it's hard to find videos of SCP creatures out there. You know they're locked up, right? Well, this is another very well made video of SCP-173, uploaded to YouTube by David Anatoly. The video begins with a man waking up on the floor outside before entering a building where he finds a piece of paper on the ground. It shows a picture of SCP-173 as well as gives a brief description of the creature. The man blinks and before him stands 173. He blinks again, it gets closer. He then starts running through the building in an attempt to lose sight of the creature. But take a look what happens for yourself. I don't want to ruin it all for you. And finally, in at number 1, SCP-087. SCP-087 is simply an unlit platform staircase. Yep, stairs. Specifically stairs descending on a 38-degree angle for 13 steps before reaching a semicircular platform of approximately 3 meters in diameter, according to the SCP Wiki. There is no light present on the staircase, as light sources brighter than 75 watts have been known to be absorbed by SCP-087. Previous reports have stated distressed sounds from a child on the staircase. However, descending the staircase doesn't bring you any closer to the sounds, it just remains, no nearer or farther away from your location at any time while on the stairs. Now, in one particular video uploaded to YouTube, a person can be seen wandering around in the dark in what appears to be a basement or the ground floor of a building. All I know is there's stairs somewhere in there. I saw them. I'm sure there's stairs there. At one point, a set of eyes can be seen, clearly visible from within the dark depths. Now, whether this is real or just a prank, it's probably a prank, this video is truly chilling. Take a look.